Hi, I'm Captain Spud. If you were born before 2020, you may remember me as someone who used to do things. And then I stopped doing things. And then several years later, I tried to resume doing things, but the things I did kind of sucked, so you haven't seen them. But I've just finished a thing that doesn't suck, and I think you should watch 5 hours of video about it. Every year, I go to Adepticon. Except for the years I don't. When I do, I like to spend months ahead of the event working on a big project. A new army and an elaborate display tray to show it off. I find it hard to motivate myself to do these big projects without a big milestone event as the excuse. My goal with the big projects is to enter into the Infinity singles and doubles events and hope to be given a hunk of metal from the trophy store that says my army was prettier than the other armies. My track record for winning these hunks of trophy store metal is not good, but the chase remains exhilarating. After I failed to win last year, I found myself awake in the hotel room at 4 a.m. due to the noise from the lawnmower my friend Scott had accidentally inhaled the night before, and wandered to the hotel lobby with a sketch pad. In that exhausted haze, I made a few sketches of what ended up being the next year's big project. For a month or so beforehand, I had already been pondering the idea of an army that was almost entirely robots. I had just finished painting an army that was all humans in very fiddly outfits, and I yearned for the flat, boring panels of Panoceanian armor. So on that dim gray morning, my exhausted brain pondered, wait, how do those robots get around? And while the intuitive answer is, of course, it's the future, they have spaceships, I was too starved of neurotransmitters at that moment to remember that. So instead, my brain decided, there's this truck. Like a big truck. A really big robot truck. And then I drew it. It's basically a Jawa sandcrawler, but like smaller. Still pretty big, so like here's a human, and then here's a tag about 2 to 3 times their size, and then the truck is just like even dwarfs the tags. But also like the sides open, so that like the big robots can climb inside for storage and recharging. But otherwise, exactly like a Jawa sandcrawler. Oh, but also I was imagining that like the little tiny robots like grip onto the side. That was a cool visual that I liked. Oh, and also I was imagining it on a beach for some reason. So it was like a beach crawler. As I drew, a rich mythology sprung into my mind. This wasn't just a beach. It was a beach in Space Brazil, which is not actually a place Corvus Belli has put into the Infinity setting, but I'm sure that's just an oversight and we'll be hearing about it soon. And I found myself drawing people who I imagined owning the truck. One was an old space Brazilian grandma who was the mechanic. She salvages military robots and she owns the truck. But also, like, she has a family. Her family help her out. Her granddaughter is the most enthusiastic one. She pilots the little robots with this, remote control thing. Look how excited she is! The middle generation is less keen. The kid's mom drives the truck, and also she worries, because Grandma keeps encouraging the kids to come with her into battles, which seems somewhat unsafe, but, it's fine. The youngest one is too small to go near the battles, so he stays back and takes care of the capybaras. The capybaras who climb into the tags and pilot them. I did mention this is Space Brazil, as you'll recall. Of course there are capybaras. By the time I was done these sketches, I knew I had the idea for my next big project. And as soon as we got back home, I immediately proceeded to do absolutely nothing about it for 6 months, because I had never worked on a project before that took longer than 2 months. So what were the odds that this project would take any more than that? This is what's known in literature as foreshadowing. This project took me a long time to build. It involved materials and methods that I hadn't used before at any kind of large scale. So as I worked, I kept encountering novel problems I had never had to solve before. Whenever that happened, I recorded a video addressed to my friend Tom to complain about it. What you're about to watch, unless you understandably decide not to, are 40 of these videos, totaling about 5 hours, spanning over the 6 months it took to complete the project. These videos mostly do not show me actually working on the project. Instead, each one is me catching my breath after a phase of construction, explaining what I've just done, why I made certain decisions, and then how those worked out. Also, what I see at that moment as the next steps, the next problems I think I'm going to have to solve, and how I speculate I might address those problems. And then we'll jump forward in time together and see how that worked out a few days later. Which, might not actually be interesting, but it is a hole you can bury your head in for 5 hours to escape from the depressing hellscape of 2025, and that has to have some value, right? If you do decide to soldier on, I'm going to suggest starting with a video that isn't a progress log. Instead, I think you should start with a video I recorded almost at the end of the project, which demonstrates the entire process from design to final construction of one incredibly small component on the truck. Because 2/3 of the work on this project involved me cutting out custom vector shapes on Fresca box cardboard using a Silhouette CNC cutter. And if you don't know what all of the verbs and nouns in that sentence mean, this is going to be a very confusing 5 hours of video. That video does include some nearly finished shots of the truck, so it may be a bit jarring to go from that back to the first progress report, but I'm confident you can handle the G-forces from that maneuver. Alright, that's it. Hopefully something in the following mess is compelling enough to keep your attention. If not, you can always jump to the finished shots at the end. And, yeah. That's it. Have fun.